Hey there, what's up, Soul Warriors? Welcome to this very special Saturday Night Soul session. Live with me, LC. I am so honored and grateful to be here and to bring you such a special guest. I always love it when purposes in people align. And I have just been immersed into tonight's guest's content on Instagram. I just recognize I like heart, I like mind and people that are talking about this new paradigm of recovery. Listen, we all know that just trying to remain clean and sober, and those words, even the words, you know what I mean? They just invoke this feeling of, ugh. And I knew 9 years ago when I came into this place of recovery that if I didn't do something different, it wasn't going to change. I had to be the change and I had to go deeper and try to understand what it was I was going through. I had to move past the shame and the blame and the guilt and get down to the root of what was truly happening in my world, what was truly happening within me, and how my trauma and mindset and nervous system was all playing a part in all of it. So I'm so grateful to bring Alyssa Caitlin here tonight to speak about her own 15-year battle, her now just a thriving transformational coaching business that she has stepped into, her passion really, as a certified holistic health and NLP coach. Her whole mission is to create a safe space for addiction and trauma survivors to be able to heal their past. And here's what I love so much: step into their power and create a life that they truly want and love. Our motto here on Recovery Soul Food is get up from your give up and create a life you love. There's something about realizing that you are a creator in this reality that helps you harness the power that is truly you. So I'm super excited for tonight. If you are here, go ahead and share this video out. We are live on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It will absolutely be up and available on Spotify and iTunes and Amazon Music and iHeartRadio within the next 24 hours. So make sure you watch this a couple times. There's always something new in everything that we watch. We never just watch one movie that we love just once. Every time we watch it, we find something new. And I want to make sure that I bring you content and guests that will reward you every single time that you watch it or listen to it. So let me get some housekeeping out of the way because I'm super excited to get into this. All right. You can follow Recovery Soul Food right here on TikTok, Instagram, recovery_soul food. Go and check us out there. Follow us on Instagram to know all. Here is the thing I want to ask you. Have you downloaded your Sober app? And if not, why not? The Sober app is the Mind Valley of recovery, and I'm super grateful, honored to be a part of such a holistic approach to recovery, in that there is everything for your mind, your body, your spirit. I mean, it's just a whole program to wrap around and help you in every single way. It's got your tracking, it's got everything you need to create a life you love. So download your Sober app. That is there in the Apple App Store, the Google Play Store, and so go get it. It is affordable for everyone. Do not be afraid to invest in yourself. It will be the greatest investment you ever make. Now, also, when you're on Amazon and you're doing your shopping, pick up this amazing book by Miss Pamela Topjian. I didn't come this far to only come this far. Pamela is an amazing soul with a powerful story. She is every woman and she is powerful. She's written her memoir and this is a great read. I'm telling you, you can't even put it down. She's also made it affordable. So I'm going to tell you right now, for under $20, you can change your life this weekend. You can download your Sober app. You can buy Pamela's book and you are set to recover. I want to give some props right now. You guys can't see my new shirt because I'm away from home using a laptop and the camera doesn't pick it up, and I'm going to stand up and let you guys see it. Our new merch is coming out, and I have an amazing connection in Miss Amber Knight, AMK Customs, who's making these amazing recovery soul food shirts for us. So let me know if you guys are interested in getting some recovery soul food gear and merchandise. She is in the process of setting that up. We will support all recovery warriors living their dreams on this podcast and in my life. She's an amazing human being. She's already made me some amazing stuff. I'm super excited. We're going to do some giveaways. So that's AMK Customs with Miss Amber Knight. Thank you so much. All right, y'all. I have done enough jibber jabbering. It is time to get into this Saturday night soul session live with me, LC, and Miss Alyssa Caitlin, transformational, holistic health, and NLP coach. Let's go. And maybe not. I told you guys I'm on something new, right? I'm on something new. Let's go. Alyssa, I'm so
Right.
grateful that you're here.
I'm
We
so happy
finally
to
are
be
doing this.
here.
So, I want to jump right in because there's just so much. I'm reading your bio and I see that you yourself have, gotten up from your give up from a 15-year battle with addiction and trauma. So tell us about you and who you are and just your passions in life.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I struggled on and off with addiction for 15 years. For as long as I can remember, I was just in a battle with my mind. I struggled with social anxiety as a kid. I was very shy. And this is quite common. Seems to be a pattern with a lot of people who struggled with addiction, is that social anxiety, and you just have a hard time connecting and making friends with others. So
Yeah.
I started drinking in high school, and I loved how it made me really outgoing. And then kind of one thing led to another, and I started getting into drugs, just starting, like mushrooms, acid, and eventually that led to cocaine. And then I was hooked on cocaine by the age of 16 years old.
Wow.
I did get sober when I turned 20. I ended up getting pregnant with my daughter. But I never dealt with any of the trauma that I had dealt with in the past, right? So I did quit on my own for a little while, but shortly after, started drinking again. And things just spiraled out of control. And I was just in a series of, I'm sorry. My story is on, sorry. And then just one thing led to another. And I got in bad relationships with other people who were also really heavy into drugs and alcohol. And eventually I just hit a rock bottom. And I ended up leaving the relationship I was in. I moved into an apartment, and I went to my boss at the time. I let him know that I was struggling with a drug and alcohol addiction, and they wanted me to go on disability leave. And I couldn't at that time because I just moved into an apartment on my own, and they decided to let me go. So, so it was really challenging because I was just left this abusive relationship. I was battling with an addiction. And then all of a sudden I was on my own. I moved into an apartment where we had no furniture, and then I was out of a job. So that was my rock bottom. But that was what I needed to get into recovery and to start getting sober. So from there, I did start an AA program. I started the 12 steps right away. That program saved my life. But for me, it wasn't enough to just be sober. Like I wanted
Yeah.
more out of my life, right?
Yeah.
And I just
Yes.
really wanted to be the best version of myself possible. So I became obsessed with personal and spiritual development. I got into holistic health, holistic nutrition. I
Mm.
changed my life through my diet. I learned a lot about gut health because
Yeah. It's amazing.
90% of serotonin is produced in our gut, right? And then we have other neurotransmitters as well. So that was huge. And then also getting into like NLP work,
Mm.
working through limiting beliefs, subconscious reprogramming, also somatic therapy as well, because we store trauma in our body. So I really approached it holistically, and it changed
I
my
love
life.
it.
And I'm a completely different person today. Yeah, I'm so grateful. It's really incredible.
That's a powerful story, and I love that you really brought it home to that rock bottom moment, because it, like it is truly a gift, and it's so hard to see that, when you're right in the middle of it, and you're at the precipice of realizing how much we hold ourselves. We're locked into these beliefs, because for so many people, and I know this probably is true for a lot of people you work with, is when we experience trauma at a very young age, we don't really know that there is a choice of seeing ourselves as a victim and being victimized, because that's a child's mind, and you are being victimized, and there's just no way to separate that. So it's almost like a light bulb. I won't even call it a light bulb. It's more like a key to the prison door to realize, oh wow. So I don't have to continue to live in that 5-year-old body, in that place of being victimized. And it's amazing how subconsciously we will continue to put ourselves in situations, and we don't understand how we ourselves are moving towards that, because it's our comfort zone. We keep thinking, how am I in this same shitty relationship? It's the same person, just a different name, a different face. What's happening? The greatest thing I ever heard was, I was saying that same thing to a sponsor as I was doing the 12 steps at one of my attempts. And they said, well, who's the common denominator in all of this? And they were like, well, you are. And I was like, that can't be true. I'm the victim in all of this.
Yeah,
What do you
yeah.
mean? Can't be me. But it was amazing to really hear that, understand that, and absorb that, and think, so I do have a little bit of power here, and start to do that.
Absolutely.
What
And
did
I
that
think
look like for
it's so
you?
like I love what you just said, and it's so important to when we take personal responsibility for our lives. It doesn't mean that we're taking blame for everything that's happened to us.
Yes.
It means we're actually taking our power back,
Yes.
and we're able to see, okay, how did I play a part in this? And maybe it wasn't necessarily conscious. We didn't consciously want to bring these things into our lives, but like subconsciously, we're attracting this into our lives because of feelings of unworthiness, because of attachment issues, because of trauma from our childhood. And a lot of times that's really difficult to look at, because you meet a lot of people who really truly believe that they're like, well, I didn't experience any trauma as a child. Like I had a really
Right.
great upbringing. And like trauma looks different for everybody.
Yes.
And sometimes it's really hard to be able to look at our childhood and realize that it wasn't perfect, and there's no blame on our parents because they were doing the
Right.
best that they could.
Right.
And we just pass on these patterns that were, like our parents are just passing on patterns that were passed down to them. That's
Yes.
all it is. So it's like when we are able to acknowledge that, then we're able to just like validate what we went through and validate our feelings that were not validated when we were a child, so that we
Right.
could just start the healing process. And that's what taking personal responsibility is. It's not taking blame for what happened to you. It's just taking
Right.
responsibility for your own healing.
So important. So important that you say that, because I think that's what we associate with taking responsibility. We associate that with blame. And I remember sitting in a place when I was hearing, and it clicked, what you're talking about right now, where I was listening, had heard something, and it was just absorbed in my body that the brain doesn't know the difference between right now and 20 years ago. So every time I'm reliving that abuse or that happening, my brain is producing the same cortisol, the same, the hormones. It's shooting through my gut, and I couldn't understand the connection between the two. While I was sick in my body all the time, I stayed constantly with muscle and joint pain. I was having joint surgeries, and I'd had 12 stomach surgeries. I mean, this was continuously going on. And when that finally like came home and just integrated within me, it gave me this amazing another moment where I could take my power back, meaning that so if I'm allowing these people to continue to abuse me, they're off living their life. I'm the one that's still suffering. So
Yeah.
guess what? I get to stop that today, and taking that power back, and then realizing how that was all playing out in my body was just like I said, another key to a prison door that unlocked my own power. That's amazing. There's so much that I want to ask you, especially you know how when you first started in your now new holistic approach, and how you were moving through this, what was one of the first resources that you began to really start that started making sense to you? Was it a speaker or something you read? What started making sense?
I really dove into spirituality for sure.
Mhm.
I was actually, I think, a Deepak Chopra book that I really got
Ah,
into. I love Deepak Chopra.
yeah.
So that I believe the book was Seven Spiritual Laws of Success. So that was like
Mhm.
kind of the first spiritual book that I really started reading. And
I love it.
And it was honestly the very first thing that I did. And this is kind of what you're forced to do when you get sober is you're forced to feel your emotions. And
Yeah.
I came across a quote, I believe probably through the internet, from I can't recall her name, but she's basically like she's a Harvard brain scientist, but she said that it takes 90 seconds to process your emotion and allow it to
Mm.
dissipate while you just simply notice it. And I'm like, really? And I'm like, so I just started practicing it, and obviously it's like it happens in like you're not going to be able to process everything out all at once, but I would just sit there and I would just allow like whatever emotion become like that came up. I allowed myself just to feel it and to label it. Labeling it was really, really important, right? And I just practiced that. And like, yeah, I'm just going to sit and feel it for 90 seconds. And then it did. I was able to release it, right? And obviously it's back to years and years of trauma. So that was the first thing that I really started to explore was being able to sit with my emotions. That's so difficult for us in recovery. And a lot of times we'll try and distract ourselves, right? Like we'll just run addiction to another addiction with like workaholism, like trying to stay busy and not being able to sit and process everything. So that was kind of the first step for me towards my healing and just like implementing a meditation practice as well.
That yeah, that is amazing. That is amazing because in all the study I've done, I've not heard that 90-second process. And isn't it how amazing when all of a sudden you have like this process that you can do and try, and even if you try something that doesn't necessarily work for you, like you're building these new neural pathways in your mind, that you are now trying things that are going towards your betterment. And it seems like it's a very underlying thing that before you know it, because my healing began with a gratitude practice. Bob Proctor, I watched a free Bob
Love
Proctor
Bob Proctor.
webinar, and when he told me, gratitude is the key, and you got to start make a list of 10 things, and if you can't think of 10, make 5. And I'll tell you, Alyssa, I could not truly think of one thing, because I was looking at the things that I am now so truly grateful for in my life, my family, my son, we had a roof over our heads. But I could not see it in a way to be grateful for it. All I could see was how I was failing them, how it wasn't our house, how, I just wasn't measuring up or good enough. And so when I started that process and I had one thing, and it wasn't just one thing where you can just start saying it, oh, I got a car, I'm grateful for that. It had to be this deep connection, this head, mind, body, heart connection with one thing that I could truly just dive in and feel, like you said, to feel the gratitude for that. And as I did that, like every day, I just started noticing that on its own, that list began to grow, and it just began to grow within me, and my perception of the world and my place in it just started changing. And like you said, it wasn't an overnight thing. It was a gradual process that I don't think we stop enough in our lives to kind of just sit there and absorb how far we've come, what we're doing that's working for us, what we're doing that feels like my friend Pamela Topjian says, like a hell yes or versus a hell no, what we're doing to try to please or gain validation, and what we're doing that's truly, close to us. So that's an amazing process that you just explained. That 90 seconds is amazing. I love that.
Absolutely. And I love everything that you just said. And like scientists call it like or psychologists call it the negativity bias, right? Like where our
Mm,
brains are wired to think
yes.
negative, we actually have to work to be more positive.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't realize, right? So yeah, that's huge for sure.
Yes, yes, for sure. And you're so right, that learning that negative bias, that that we're geared to stay safe, what it's, supposed to be safe. So we're looking for the
Yeah.
problems. And that's what I find that was so prevalent in me when I was in active addiction and coming from all the trauma, and then having so much body negativity, feeling, so different, and like I had these dark secrets that I had to hold. Of course, we bond with other people that are in the communities that we are like-minded people. We kind of flock together.
Mhm.
And so we all have that, you know, that vision of the world, that it's us against the world, or it's, this is as good as it gets for us. And we make these bonds and things, and we find ourselves almost tying our own weights, tying the cinder blocks to our legs, so to speak, with our own knots. And but at the same time, we're blaming it outward. It's something else. Something's holding us back. How
Yeah.
long did it take you to really start seeing a true shift in your world? And what did that feel like for you?
Oh, and honestly, it's still a process, right? Like we're on this continuous healing journey. It will never arrive. Like it's as long as I'm on earth, I'm going to be healing, right? And it's really
Mm.
important to like acknowledge that no matter how far I've come. But I think no matter what, as soon as you get sober, you're going to start noticing shifts right away.
Yeah.
And I've noticed, like I would say, and I was pretty hard on myself at the beginning. Like I was really dedicated to doing this work. And I would say a few months into it was really when I started to really notice shifts. But like even now, like more so, you'll notice the biggest shifts when you push yourself out of your comfort zone and you start taking action. And I spent so many years isolating because I felt like I just like needed to be alone and like work through all of this trauma, which it is important to be alone. But I have an avoidant attachment style. I have a
Mm.
hard time. Like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with all the attachment styles. There's like
Yeah.
anxious attachment and there's avoidant attachment. I'm sure you know all about them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm very much avoidant. And I had to realize, I'm like, oh, being alone is very comfortable for me. Like for someone who has an anxious attachment style, it's really good for them to be alone and to learn to self-regulate. But for me, being an avoidant, I avoid relationships. I actually need to learn how to co-regulate. So I actually spent years doing all of this work in isolation, which was like great. I was making internal progress. I was at a better mindset, but really my life, I didn't feel like was really moving forward because anytime I went out in public, I had severe social anxiety still, right? And I
Yeah.
blamed it on being an empath. I'm like, oh, I'm just an
Oh,
empath. I need to isolate. But in reality, it's so funny to look back on now because that was my excuse, right?
oh
But in
yeah.
reality, it's like, no, like the issue is my nervous system is so dysregulated. So when I'm out in public, I feel so uncomfortable around people because I don't feel safe around people. And what do we
Right.
need to do
Right.
is we actually have to push ourselves out of our comfort zone
Yes.
and learn how to co-regulate with others. We need to learn how to build like and create safe relationships with other people. That's the only way to do it, right? Is just to force ourselves
Yes.
out there and prove to ourselves that there
Yes.
are safe people out there. There are like safe friendships, and it's okay to like get back
Yeah.
out there.
I'm so glad you said that about the empath because in those spiritual circles it becomes like this excuse that you can hide under. Oh, I'm just an empath. I pick up everyone's energy, and it's like, no. Like, what happens, especially
Yeah.
in like abused children, is you read the room subconsciously and you pick up safe and unsafe energy. And then because of our attachment styles, we will then go towards that unsafe energy in ways to try to then please that. Like I would find myself over pleasing the person that couldn't be pleased. And my mom has this same attachment style because we kind of grew up together and went through our abuse together, a lot of it. And
Mm-hmm.
I see her now, and she says, well, it's a challenge to me to change someone's heart or mind about me. If they don't like me, I'll make them like me. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's not like a real big talent. That is a trauma response. And so we should probably talk about that. But it's a difference in, the different generations and how they are completely unwilling
Totally.
to look at that stuff, because my mom's idea about the way she deals with her trauma is that, well, I don't think about that stuff anymore, and so it's not affecting me. And then, as the work that we do, we're kind of sitting back there going, oh, but it's still working. It's working on you big time.
Yeah.
And you know I am so grateful and honored to be a part of this time in recovery, and I see things with such a divine timing and vision that I'm so grateful for all the times that I tried to get clean and sober and failed, because this was my time. I've said this for the last 5 years of doing this recovery and this work out loud on the internet, that we are positioned to help change the world, to help
Mm-hmm.
this evolution in consciousness happen, because this is our work. Like, this is our work. And if we don't do it, our life is on the line. Like, you can't play around with addiction too much. Eventually, your life is going to be on the line. So for a whole community that it's a life or death decision, we can really speak volumes to people that are just out there trying to gain, gain a life that they love, to try to figure out how they can get unstuck. It's amazing to
Yeah.
me. Amazing.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
incredible how our trauma can just become our gift, like our greatest gift if
yes.
we allow it to, right? It's just being able to see it that way. It's
Yes.
been like honestly everything that I went through was the greatest thing I could have possibly experienced, because now it led me to my purpose. Like your pain becomes your purpose, your mess becomes
Yes.
your mission if you allow it
Mm.
to.
Hmm. Absolutely. And you know what I want to say to folks, anyone who'll watch this now with us or who'll watch this later, is don't worry if you're not in that place yet. Just take hope that you can continue to do the work and you will get to that place, because it took me a while. I'm 9 years in recovery now. I'm 5 years in gender transition. There was a lot that I had to do to be able to get to this place and this space that I'm in now. And for it took me 3 years to start being able to see my past as my passion, to draw passion from my past. So you know we have a tendency to be really hard on ourselves when we see or hear someone speaking about what it is we long to have, and yet we feel like we don't have it. If you're doing this work, you're on your way. I promise you. Just keep moving through and keep listening and keep finding hope and inspiration. And, you know, what would you say to somebody right now who's in that place of maybe being really hard on themselves? And I think I know what you're gonna say, and I hope that you do and add your amazing spin to it because it's important. But so many people get caught up in this manifestation law of attraction stuff right now. But I think we're
Mhm.
missing a very big vital part of all this because we're still trying to manifest things to create happiness. But what would you say to somebody who is pretty aware of what their path is and yet can't quite seem to get there? What would be your advice, or how would you coach them through that place? I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. And like, if someone's going through that, I so resonate with that because it's something I struggled with for years where it's like I focus like the whole like manifestation thing and like I think you kind of know where I'm going to go with this. I'm a huge believer in that,
Sure.
absolutely, but it's
Absolutely.
like and mindset that's so important
Yes.
if you use it alongside like working through releasing trauma because if
Yes.
you're storing trauma in your body, you are not going to be able to manifest the future that you want. And like
No.
I can tell you from experience that I spent years meditating, focusing on manifesting, focusing
Yeah.
on just like thinking positive. While that's super important, it can be used as a coping mechanism, and it's super
Yes.
important to mention that like we can't
Yeah.
positive think our way out of trauma. And it's so important. Like we're all so hard on ourselves in recovery. Like even if we don't show it, we are. It's our self-worth that we just struggle with, right?
Yep.
So it's just
Yep.
being there's a fine line between it's like you want to like be gentle on yourself throughout the process and love yourself throughout the process, but also give yourself a bit of tough love where you're like you're pushing yourself and you have to go into like those difficult areas with someone that you feel safe
Yes.
with that can coach you through it, right? Because you
Yes.
got to go into the shadows, you got to do the heavy shadow work
You
if you
do.
really want to manifest the life that you want. And it's hard to
Absolutely.
look at ourselves. It's really hard to see those parts of ourselves, but I think the best advice that I can give is learn to laugh at yourself. And I still laugh at myself because I still catch myself every single day in patterns, like new patterns, because you're constantly peeling back these layers.
Yeah.
And like we just talked about them earlier, just like the whole empath thing. Like it took me so long to get that.
Yeah.
And as soon as I did, I just laughed at myself. So I'm like, it's hilarious that I use that as an excuse for so long, right? Where I would use that as an excuse of, oh, I'm just picking up on that other person's like emotions and what they're going through. It's like, no, they're triggering your own trauma, Alyssa.
Yes.
Like that's what's
Yes.
happening. So
Yes.
it's learn to enjoy the process because it can actually be really fun and really
Absolutely.
rewarding, like learning about all of this
Yeah.
and just like laugh at yourself. Like don't take yourself so
Absolutely.
seriously as you go through this.
Yeah.
That's the
It's
best
so
advice I could
true.
give.
And that's amazing advice, and it's exactly what I hope you were going to go into because it is true. We can get caught up well, because I mean, we think about it when we're in active addiction, we have like no trust for ourselves. We like zero trust our decisions because it seems like we say quotes to ourselves like, my best decisions got me, arrested, or my best decision. And those things, as these are affirmations too. When we talk about positive affirmations and what we say to each other, we have to understand all the affirmations we've given to ourselves. Like, I'm an addict, I'm a junkie, this is as good as it gets for me, I'm this, I can't be trusted. And these are things we're going to be working through while we're doing this work. And it's brilliant and important, the work that you do, and so brilliant how you explained that, because we won't positive think our way through this trauma, and we will not manifest anything more than who we truly are. We don't manifest what we want in our mind, we manifest more wanting. It took me a long time to understand that, because you've got the camp that is the motivational positive thinking, and I fell deep into that camp, deep into that camp,
Me too.
And I fell deep in there, and I was so hard on myself because I just kept thinking, I'm not doing it right. I'm not doing it right. When in the reality is divinity said, no, man, I want you to go deeper. Like, there's a different answer to this, and you're not going to manifest anything but more wanting, or you may manifest some stuff, but what you're going to realize is that stuff is not going to do it for you either. It's why I try to work so closely with people in gender transition. And this is why, because so many of us, because of all that we've been taught and all that we absorb, is I'll be happy when. And if I've seen too many people go through the internal and external trauma of changing their bodies and never healing their hearts. And then once they get to that place where they're now complete, they realize that it didn't do what they thought it was going to do for them. And then all of a sudden, instead of going back in and going deeper, they now say, I should have never done this. I regret transitioning. And that breaks my heart to see people, because I know that pain. I really do. I always thought, I subconsciously began to gain weight when I was 5 and 6 years old because I had a stepfather who had began to molest me. And as a child, you think, you know, this is sex, or sex is like attraction. And I thought, oh, well, he must think I'm pretty. So if I'm ugly, then this will stop. And so I gained a lot of weight. I wanted my long hair cut off, and I wanted to be more the gender I identified with, but I really tried. So this was all subconscious happening as a child. So then I began to be a very obese adult as well. And so I thought, okay, if I lose all this weight, because my family was always, if you were thin, they say all those things they say to, people with obesity, you have such a pretty face, and, all those things that are so damaging to people. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll get thin and this will take care of it. I had a very massive surgery and I lost massive amounts of weight in 6 months, and I developed a methamphetamine problem within that too. But I realized the hopelessness that I had discovered when, oh my gosh, here I am. I'm still here. Like, this did not take care of the main thing that I was running from. And that was me, not being able to be alone with myself, not being able to be alone with my thoughts. And it's heartbreaking to me. And so I think we do that in addiction too. Well, I'll put down the drugs and the alcohol and my life will get better and I'll be fine. And then you find out it doesn't. And then you're in relapse. And some people come back from it and some don't. We all probably know somebody who never came back. And that's heartbreaking. And so I think what you just explained through all of that is life changing. It is life enhancing for someone who's ready to hear that. Um, Talk to me about what your main goal when you begin to work with a client. What does that look like for you? Like, where do you guys start?
So I always, and first I want to say thank you so much for your vulnerability, and your transformation is so incredible. Like, you're such
Thank
a
you.
gift to this
Thank
world.
you.
So
Thank you.
thank
Right
you
back
for all that
at you.
you do.
Thank you.
So yeah, so when I start with a client, we first focus on the physical, like getting our physical health back on track.
Amazing.
And then, so that would look like focusing on like nutrition. Gut health is a big one for me, just because a lot of like people who deal with a lot of trauma, they usually have like gut health issues is very common, who
Yep.
just, because of the connection, like the gut brain connection. So that's an area that we really focus on. So then also just getting into a meditation practice and doing some breath work.
Mm.
So that's where we start. And then we kind of gradually get into, okay, let's start focusing on uncovering these limiting beliefs and start becoming aware of those, right? And then
Yeah.
and then that looks like getting into different things like attachment styles, looking into like masculine and feminine
Mm,
energies, and that's actually huge. Like a lot of people don't
it is.
realize it. When you
It
start to
is.
learn, when you start to learn about the masculine and feminine energies, you start to realize that you have a lot of like distrust and trauma around certain energies. So it's healing
Yes.
that as well and healing that within ourselves. So that's an area that we look at. And then we want to like reframe these beliefs. But then at the same time, we need to replace, because whenever you're releasing things, you're releasing trauma, we're releasing old stories, well, you got to
Yeah.
replace that. And we got to replace that with
Absolutely.
new experiences. And that's like the uncomfortable part for a lot of people, because that takes pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and like starting to build new relationships with people that you trust. And a
Yeah.
lot of times that looks like because addiction and codependency often go hand in hand, right? So it's very important, if you have a history of codependency, to take a break from dating. So it's
Yes.
not like I'm encouraging people to go out and start dating. It's like, no, no, no. If you
Right.
have issues with, like, say, like the masculine energy or the feminine energy, let's just start building friendships,
Yes.
solid platonic friendships with those energies, right?
Yes.
And to learn
Yes.
to trust that again, because in relationship to others, like that is the best way to become aware of our wounds and our triggers.
Absolutely.
Like
Oh my
that is
gosh,
how they
yes.
come up,
Like
right?
boot
So
camp. Boot camp for sure. For
yeah,
sure.
absolutely. So those are the
It's
things that I
amazing.
work with my clients, and it all depends on where they're at, right? But
That's
yeah,
amazing. That's truly amazing, and it's an amazing thing, you bringing up those energies because I don't hear enough people talking about that. But I could not even start to begin to heal my own feminine energies until I began my transition, until I felt safe because, watching my mom go through her trauma, being traumatized myself, I blamed that on my body. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like I blamed that on, well, if I were in my right body, this wouldn't be happening. This man was that he was a masculine and my mom was real small and that's female feminine equals weakness. I have to take care of her. There were all of these things, and it wasn't until I began to get safe enough in my own body that I could open myself up. And I want to say this and make everybody understand, I was working with a trauma informed specialist and mentor and coach, so I was in this work that you were doing, that you do, and it was just amazing because I see the divine feminine as the strongest energy, like ever. There's nothing stronger on earth than a woman. I'm telling you, that divine feminine is so strong, patient, kind, able to, doesn't have to get in and react, is able to win battles without ever, throwing a punch. And I was just always so concerned with covering that up by being hyper masculine, taking on those very negative and destructive, hyper masculine, toxic masculine, if you will, behaviors. Because if I would go all the way to one side or the other. And it's been so fun just really growing in such appreciation for the divine feminine and just even being able to appreciate my wife of 17 years, being able to appreciate my wife even more in this space. I am just in awed by her on a daily basis, mothers, wives, work, CEOs, entrepreneurs. There's no stopping. And I love seeing this shift. And I'm grateful that these energies are healing, but it's important what you're talking about, and I don't hear people talking about it enough. So you're really a trailblazer in that. That's amazing.
totally. And it's so important. People don't realize that. And how you talked about like swinging, like one way or the other. Like you actually have to. That's part of the healing. And it's so important to even mention that. Like I had so much wounding around the masculine energy because of the abuse that I had experienced in my relationships, that when I left that relationship, I went so far the other way because I was so in my wounded feminine energy,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
I was in, and for anyone who's wondering, like a wounded feminine energy, that really looks like kind of like that victim mindset, like low self-worth, low self-esteem, like couldn't find my voice, couldn't stand up for myself. Well, I had to swing the other way and I became so masculine. And we're actually seeing this play out collectively right
Yeah.
now, right?
Yeah.
Like we're seeing this in the
Yeah.
collective, and it's all part of it. Like it's
Yes.
all part of this evolution where it's like all of a sudden like the feminine has to swing the other way and almost step into a more masculine role. It's like we don't
Absolutely.
want to stay there. Like it's okay that we're doing that right now, but let's go back to our feminine energy because it's so
Yeah.
beautiful. And we're
Yeah.
losing like the value in feminine energy, which is like the
Yes.
nurturing, wisdom, like creative
Yes.
energy. It's so, so beautiful. So
Oh
it
gosh,
was
it is.
finding my way back to that, to be able to go back into my feminine. Once I stepped into that masculine, it's like, okay, let's heal the feminine and finding the balance between them both because it's so important. We're going to need to be able to step into both energies like
Yeah.
when it's necessary. But one, like we all lean towards one energy. It doesn't matter what gender we are, we'll lean towards one energy more so than
Yeah.
the other. So,
Yeah, that's quite amazing. That's quite amazing. And what we're going through right now too in this, there is a I don't even know what to call it. It's almost like this panic to hold on to that old, paradigm and collective way of being, that whole pick a side. I mean, even what we're seeing within the LGBTQ plus community, in the transgender community, I've had these two very upsetting but healing and growing conversations in the last 2 days. And it didn't dawn on me until I talked to a friend of mine, another divine feminine, living her just amazing purpose. And she said, that's the whole thing. Like, we're still trying to be in that pick a side energy. The
yeah,
transgender community is such a very small portion of the population that while it's good, everybody should be included, and all human beings have the right to be who they are, and not even just the right, they have the divine right to be who they were made to be. But
yeah,
when we hyper focus on these areas, and you let the media bring in fear, or you let these entities come out and bring in fear, we're making people choose a camp. You're either all for this or you're all for that. And to me, it sounds like that same masculine, feminine energy, when really the answer is in the middle, because we are
yeah,
all, divine, and have both that balanced energy. But it's when that energy gets off balance that we see things like major recessions and wars, and the things that
yeah,
we keep trying to grasp onto, the old ways that just aren't working, we are moving through. And I just see it on both sides. And I had an amazing conversation with someone today where, we were talking about the fear that surrounds the inability to have conversations with differing opinions or beliefs, because it's almost as if we have to pick a side, pick a camp, and if you don't agree with me, we just can't be. And and we're not growing anymore. When we do that, we're closing ourselves off to growth and expansion. And it's
yeah,
sad to me. It's so
yeah.
sad.
And that's so
So
beautifully
sad.
said. And I even saw a post today of someone on a very kind of controversial topic right now, not taking a side, just like really trying to be inclusive of both. And
Yeah,
he was completely attacked. It was like you
absolutely.
said, pick a side. And it's like, no, it's not like that. But everyone, we're just seeing so many wounded energies and like just
Mm,
collective trauma being played out right
gosh.
now.
Yes,
And it's all part of the process.
it
Like
is.
it's all leading us in the right place, right?
Yeah,
Eventually we'll see it,
yes.
but right now it's very chaotic
It
for
is.
sure.
Oh my
So
gosh, it's so chaotic. And even when, because it's easy sometimes for me to to let my body get in a place, because the work that I do is very seasonal. So I work on a resort island, and after with the pandemic now, well, people now being opened up, and now people can make up for this lost time. We're being inundated with people, and it's the craziest summer I've experienced in a long time. And it's easy for me to let my body get tired, to not take care of myself and get enough sleep, to not eat right because I'm on the go, to not take my meditation time in the morning because maybe I've overslept. And when I get into those places and then have a conversation like, I've had the past couple days, or even overhear someone saying things, they have that tendency to start getting me in the spirit, where I am now trying to stand up for my side. And it's not just non LGBTQ plus community people. It's both camps, because I get attacked all the time. I did this podcast on this platform called the Transgender Mentor with my good friend and cisgendered 50 something, friend Pamela, who says people want to talk about this, but they're afraid. I want to be seen as an ally. I want to be an ally. I want to, be all inclusive, but there are questions I have, and I don't feel safe to ask them. And so I created this whole platform and say, okay, well, let's talk about it right here and now. Let's let it all out. Ask the questions. And I cannot tell you how attacked I became over my from my own community. And then when this thing in the public eye happened with Dave Chappelle, I'm a Dave Chappelle supporter, because I thought what he said gave us a great insight of what's happening in the mind of people that just really don't understand. But to me, I felt like he was an ally. And it was just so, you got to pick a side. And I thought, no, I don't. But it's easy to feel like you do. It's easy.
It's social conditioning. And you are
Mm,
just such like a great example of someone who can think for themselves, right? Who can like hear both sides and like use your own discernment and do your own research, right? Like you don't have to be conditioned to believe that like, well, if I believe in this, then I have to fully believe
yep.
everything that this side believes in, right? Like it's okay to like,
Yeah.
to take some of that and take some of that, or just not have an opinion on a
Absolutely.
certain topic, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely, absolutely. It's got to be that hell yes moment, or it's a hell no kind of a thing. I just try to live my life
Yeah.
by that. And if you overhear a conversation that feels like you feel something in your soul that maybe you need to say, I always sit, because I used to be a terrible reactor, very angry, and a reactor, and then you'd feel bad. So you get that whole
Yeah.
pattern: react, feel like crap, react, apologize, feel like crap. It's terrible. So now I find myself in this place where I'm a thinker, and it may take me 4 days or a week to come back to circle back to this, but I don't want to react and add fuel to a fire that is really unnecessary to be burning, when we can have these different conversations, and we can let people be that don't think just like we do, because we don't think the same way today that we thought 3 days ago. So it's an ever
Yeah.
evolving, life of expansion. And we have to give that, mercy to others and to ourselves in those moments too. Oh my gosh, like I think we could just have hours of conversation, Alyssa. Like
Oh,
like
absolutely.
I
I know. This is great.
I, I hate these shows that it's like I look up and I'm thinking, what? We're almost at an hour. You're kidding me. Like we're
That's
just getting warmed up.
insane. No
We're just getting
kidding.
warmed up. I love it, man. And I just really want people to see the need that they have for somebody to walk this path with them, and someone like yourself who has just really, you can tell that you live this. It's an embodiment for you. It's not just I learned this in a book and now I'm going to regurgitate this information. There's a much different energy that comes from someone who has marinated in this. It's like the difference in a steak. There's a steak that sits overnight and marinate, and one that you just throw stuff on. You embody this work, and I'm grateful that you're out in the world doing this. It's so necessary, and you are amazing at it. So we
Thank
got
you.
about 6 minutes left, or however long, but I just want to make sure that
Mhm.
people know where to find you, what you offer in all of your services, and just let people know everything you.
Yeah, so you can find me. The best place to find me is Instagram. So at the Alyssa Caitlin. So you can find me there. I do offer one-on-one coaching, so you can reach out to me on Instagram. And then I do have a podcast called the Awaken with Alyssa podcast.
Awesome. Yeah.
So you can find me on there as well.
That's amazing. You said it's the Alyssa Caitlin Coaching? Is that it
Yes.
right
Oh,
there?
but that one too, that's my backup account. I have two
Okay.
accounts, but they can
Okay.
follow either one. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay, good. I just want to make sure I got the right one up
That's the one that
there.
you're following. That's my backup.
Okay.
So
Okay,
you got
good.
to have two accounts nowadays to
I
stay safe.
I'm learning this. I started my online life on Facebook, and trying to move to Instagram has been a huge jump, and I'm learning all the ins and outs. But yeah, I guess it is. It's getting
And
hectic.
not even just like censorship reasons, but I've had friends who've lost their accounts because of hacking, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, which is scary because then you can't get it back. So,
Right.
important
Right.
to have two
Right.
accounts.
I know, and it's really hurtful when that happens, and there's a lot of trauma surrounding that as well. People building these things and then losing them and unable to get them
Yeah.
back. That happened to me a lot on Facebook, but it actually came from people that just couldn't walk this journey with me. They just couldn't go through this transition with me, and it was sad, but it was an amazing growth experience. But you know, Alyssa, if there's anything that you could leave people with, like, and I don't care how long it takes, just what would you leave somebody with if this is the only thing they hear this year? What would you say? What would you tell them?
No matter what you've done in life, no matter where you're at, you can completely turn your life around.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes, and yes. And please don't listen to the things that will talk to you in your head and give you all the reasons why you can't. All you got to have is just a little flicker of hope and one half a reason why you can. Alyssa, this has just been more than I can even express in words at this point. I feel so full, and I just hope that that translates into the same way, and I have no doubt that it will. Alyssa, you're going to have to come back because I can tell you're another one of those
Love
guests that
to.
we can do like 2 or 3 episodes. Like we could just run a series
Absolutely.
on
I
something,
know.
and I'm really looking forward to it. Tell us,
Oh.
how have you changed as a human, as in the world, as a parent, as a daughter, as a friend? How have you changed through doing all this work? What does it mean to you?
Uh, I'm a completely different person. Like you ask anyone in my life, I don't even see a resemblance of who I was not long ago. I still love that person because
Mm,
she was what created this person, right? Everything that I went through led to me to this point and where I'm at today. But I think the biggest thing for me, the biggest shift was um, learning about my avoidant tendencies and how to heal that because now I can actually like the greatest gift for me is being able to connect with others. I never would have been able to
mm,
have this conversation before. I
yeah,
never would have been able to
yeah.
like open my heart and be vulnerable and share my emotions. Emotions were so difficult for
Oh
me.
my
So
gosh,
that's just
yeah.
been the greatest gift for me is to be able to connect with other people like you. So
Yes,
yeah, it's been such a blessing. So
that's
thank you
so
so much for
amazing.
having me and
Oh my
thank
gosh.
you for everything that you do. You're such an incredible host.
Oh, thank you so much. That just I came back this season after taking a break to honor my own healing. My wife woke up after being severely misdiagnosed with mental health and being overprescribed like different mental health medications, and she nearly lost her life. And so she woke up. I call it her wake up. She's in her awakening process, and I had to honor some healing. When I came back for this season, and I knew it was time because I felt it in my soul, I sent out this request and intention that I wanted every guest to be divinely inspired, that I wanted it to be a divine connection, and that every show would leave not only an audience, but myself just spiritually full. And so every guest, I have waited until there's been a divine moment in something I see, hear, or whatever, and a connection, and I reach out. And I had I had that same experience with you, and I think it was probably, gosh, I had already watched many of your reels, and I just loved your information, and I can't remember which one it happened to be, and then it was just, I felt that shift. Okay, it's time for this ingredient. It's time for this
Amazing.
puzzle piece. And every time that I've reached out and someone says yes, it's like I know that that's that divine connection. So, and 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 I don't have people on my show that I don't end up building great relationships with after. So I gotta tell you, it's a little selfish for me because I find amazing friends and human beings here. It's outstanding. And so, where can we find your podcast? I want to make sure iTunes. Where do we find your podcast
It's
for
on
sure?
all of, yeah, like the
All this.
main
Okay.
podcast platform, Spotify, yeah,
Outstanding. Outstanding.
iTunes, yeah.
Just as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to go ahead and get on that real quick. I want to make sure. So, Alyssa, thank you so much for spending this time with me and this audience, guys. If even if you don't, I don't even care if you are still in the place where you are using. You don't have to be a certain way to step into healing. Step into healing and let it naturally carry you to a place where you change coping mechanisms. Just understand and know that using is a coping mechanism, that you are coping with life instead of being angry at it. Turn around and look at it and say thank you for helping me get through this life. Step into your healing. I don't think Alyssa has any requirements of you of where you've got to be in order to step in. Step into your healing wherever you are. I'm telling you, find a way to get up from your give up and create a life you love. Make sure that you get with the Alyssa Caitlin coaching there on Instagram and message her. She is an amazing human being, ready to help you through all that you're going through. Alyssa, again, thank you so much. This has been tremendous. I look forward to having you back. I look forward to all that you're going to continue to give to the world. To everyone who's joining us tonight, thank you so much. Those who will watch us on the replay, thank you, thank you, thank you. Know that we love you and we can do this, all of us together. We're better together. Alyssa, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing
Thank
you
you.
again. All right.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everybody. Y'all have an amazing week. Until next weekend. Ugh, just be you, love you, and know that you are loved, loved, loved by me. You are worth it. Your authenticity, your uniqueness is your superpower. Until next time, we'll see you later. Bye, guys.
Bye.